Hello there, people of the internet. So it's not very often that I get myself a modern production gun. For the most part, I try to lean more towards getting like older things. However, at the price point that this was being sold at, I figured I'd go ahead and pick it up. Normally, these right here, this is a Savage Model 94. They are sold new, like out the door, for like $99 or somewhere around that price point, between the $99 price point and like $120, depending on where you're at, the gun store, their markup, etc., etc. However, I got this one on the used market for 80 bucks, so I cannot complain about that. So the Savage Model 64 and the Savage Model 62, whenever I was trying to figure out more about them, there was some stuff that was a little fuzzy in terms of well, what what I could find out about them, like the information provided about them on the internet. And I've been able to kind of figure out that the Model 62 and the Model 64 for these 22 long rifles are essentially the same exact thing. From what I can tell, the 64 is like a fancier, well-made, or like a fancier, better-made version, better machine, better finished version of the 62. People were saying that Stevens made the 62 and Savage made the 64, but I have seen Savages out there that were marked Model 1962 or Savage Model 62 or something like that. So Savage also made 62s. Stevens, I don't know if they made 64s or just 62s, but from what I can tell, they're essentially the same exact gun. I don't know anything about parts interchangeability, but I have seen them side by side with one another, and they are literally exactly the same gun. So what this is a semi-automatic 10-shot external mag 22 long rifle. I have no idea if you can get larger magazines for these, but I do know that this particular one came with a 10-round magazine. So in terms of semi-automatic, this kind of reminds me of a Ruger 1022. If you know how to use one of those, you know how to use one of these. Very simple concept. You got your magazine with your ammunition, stick it in. This, I believe, is just a straight blowback. Pull the trigger, it goes bang. This bolt cycles back and forth until the magazine is empty or until you get yourself a firearms jam. Right here's your safety, right here's your sight, adjustable for elevation, and right here is your front sight. It is dovetailed in so you can adjust that for windage in the event that you need it to. This particular one does have a little screw-on nubbins, with lack of better terminology because I don't know what those are actually called. Little screw-on nubbins so you can mount yourself a sling onto your Savage if you want to. All in all, for the $80 price point that I got this rifle at, I am absolutely not complaining. Just because it was on the used market, I ended up getting it for a lot cheaper. Well, I say a lot cheaper, but it's really not that much more expensive to get yourself a new one. But I ended up getting it for not a lot of money, and now I got myself like a 22 long rifle that's not my Henry Survival Takedown. For the longest time, there was my only 22 long rifle that was actually mine. I know the family's got a couple of them, but I myself didn't have that just because I already had my Henry 22 long rifle takedown. There really was no point in me spending, oh, I don't know, $300 on a 1022 or something like that. But then I came across this right here, and I was like, you know what? The price is right, the meaning is right, everything is right. I should have an actual 22 long rifle in my arsenal, especially considering everything that I've already got. So I have not brought this out of the range. I do not know how well it's going to work, but I imagine it's going to work well enough for a 22 long rifle and some range plinking. I don't know how accurate it's going to be. I imagine that the ammunition that I use, depending on the ammunition, that's going to determine the accuracy by a lot. I'll have to try a couple of different brands and a couple of different grain weights and velocities to figure out what this 22 long rifle likes. Then that'll tell me how I can get the tightest groups at whatever distance it is that I'm shooting at. For 22 long rifle, I'm probably just going to set up, oh, I don't know, a paper plate at 50 yards and see what kind of group I can get on that thing. I'm probably going to try like the bulk 22 long rifle, 40 grain at 1200 feet per second stuff that you can get for like 5 cents a shot. I'll try that, see how well that works, and I'm probably going to try some CCI Stingers just because those are really, really good versions of the 22 long rifle. So in terms of history of this rifle, I was also not really able to figure out a whole lot about it just because there's so many people saying so many different things about these rifles. But this is what I've been able to gather. This was designed by a man named Cooey, and apparently it launched in either 1962 or 1964. It was produced by Kui Manufacturing or Kui Arms or some sort of arm company that he was working with or owned or something like that. And something happened to where Lakefield started producing these guns. And then Savage ended up buying Lakefield, and so now they are producing these guns, and that's where we are at today. I do know that there's other companies out there that have produced this model of firearm. Like, I'm pretty sure Winchester produced something similar to this. I know Stevens produced something similar to this. Lakefield, they produced something similar to this. Savage produced something similar to this. There were a couple of companies out there that made essentially this rifle, but with their own designations and whatnot. The history behind this gun, like I said, is kind of on the foggier side. I will have some people tell me that it was like Stevens who ended up adopting and launching the platform first, and then Savage did it in 64. And then I'll see things marked Savage 62, and then I'll see guns that came out before that 64 mark, and it's just kind of a mess whenever it comes to trying to figure out the history behind these rifles. But that's kind of the general concept of what I've been able to figure out. This is like, it kind of reminds me, like I said, of the Ruger 1022 in a sense. Definitely not identical. They're not parts interchangeable or anything like that. And the Ruger 1022 kind of reminds me of like a Glenfield Model 60. At least I think that's the designation. The Glenfield Model of 22, where it's got a tube-fed magazine as opposed to a box-fed magazine. The 1022 is kind of like one of those that has a box-fed magazine on it. So definitely some different variations in terms of 22 long rifle platforms out there with these rifles, but no matter the company, no matter where it is that they're coming from, they're all essentially the same, just with their own little tweaks and quirks and whatnot. This right here is the Savage version. I would like to take it down to the range. I do not have access to the gun range as of right now, but hopefully in the near future I'll be able to get this out to the gun range. We'll put some rounds on target. The beauty about something like this is they're not overly expensive, so I'll be able to send some lead down range pretty gosh darn easily. So I think I've said all of what I can say about this. I'm going to go ahead and do the outro here. Thanks for watching. Appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below has a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garrett. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.